Well, Mexico has a new government, and there is a lot of expectations from the climate community in Mexico, but also international community, as how will the new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, a climate scientist, how will she push forward Mexico's climate agenda and particularly energy transition? President Claudia Sheinbaum is not here at COP29, but we know that she believes in the urgency to promote the energy transition in Mexico and advance decarbonization and push for a just and equitable energy transition. But now she has to act. And even if it's too soon to make a full assessment, we do see that in her first month in office, President Sheinbaum has focused on pushing former President López Obrador pending reforms, which has been a little bit of a disappointment for many, that she has not broken with the past and made a stronger statement towards her own vision of the energy policies. The previous president, López Obrador, went backwards on renewables uptake, and he also supported an increase in Mexico's national oil company, Pemex. He increased production and refinery capacity with no considerations of the cost or the debt or the environmental impacts. And he left many incomplete projects in his trail. And that is why we believe that President Sheinbaum has to step aside from this legacy and do it as quickly as possible. So a second call for President Sheinbaum would be to be open to civil society and other social sector stakeholders. Civil society organizations in Mexico, particularly climate organizations, are eager to help her and have been working for a long time on proposals to move forward a just transition that addresses Mexico's national challenges. Energy-I, for example, is part of México Resiliente coalition, with more than 30 organizations that have developed the National Plan for Decarbonization and Climate Resilience with specific recommendations. One recommendation in particular that Energy-I has insisted is for her to have a credible and actionable strategy towards energy transition. She has to put Pemex, our national oil company, in the center of her plan of transition. Pemex extracts 95% of oil and gas of oil and gas in Mexico, and it owns most of the gas and oil infrastructure. So when we talk about oil and gas in Mexico, we're really talking about Pemex. And we have to remember that Mexico emits more than 25% of Latin America and the Caribbean's emissions, and 64% of the country's greenhouse emissions are tied to the oil and gas sector from transport or electricity. So there is really no way around. Climate action and the energy transition in Mexico must include this NOC, Pemex. And putting Pemex in the center of this transition, we say that it requires four aspects. First, that the Mexican government reassesses Pemex futures production and business plan, reduces Pemex operational greenhouse emissions, particularly methane. Also, to consider and be coherent with global commitments, including the NDCs and the methane initiatives. And finally, that it focuses on a just and an equitable approach that puts first most vulnerable communities, particularly in oil-rich regions in Mexico, Tabasco, Campeche, Veracruz. And lastly, we call on President Sheinbaum to also take up a place of leadership in climate action and bring Mexico back into a place of leadership, so this COP29 can succeed on firming up a climate finance deal.
I want to close by asking Fernanda one last question about a very recent development in Mexico, and it's that the new president released her new hydrocarbon strategy just a few days ago. Is there anything about that you'd like to highlight, Fernanda?
Yes, she presented in her morning conference the new strategy or plan for hydrocarbons. And I think, I mean, it has to be fully disclosed, and more information needs to come from that. But from what we know, there's still like some non-cohesive messages. No, it, for example, continues talking about refining, of expanding refining capacity, and this has been a huge deal in Mexico. So just to put a little bit in context, Pemex is the most indebted oil company in the world. So the debt is more than $100 billion. Or 5% of Mexico's GDP, and it's really a bomb for public finances. No, so keep on investing in refining, even in a context of energy transition, doesn't make a lot of sense. So those kind of things, I believe, need to be considered.
Thank you very much, Fernanda, and thank you very much to all of you for joining us, and keep an eye on national oil companies.